Hello, and thank you for looking at my study. It is called Experimental Evaluation of the Use of Operant Conditioning to Increase Consumption of Multiflora Rose by Goat. Other authors on this study are, myself, Molly French. I'm a student at SUNY Brockport majoring in psychology. Dr. DeRoche, Dr. Forzano, Dr. Whitnauer of the psychology department at SUNY Brockport, and Dr. Amatangelo of the Environmental Science and Ecology Department at SUNY Brockport. The purpose of this study was to investigate the usefulness of operant conditioning techniques to train goats to eat non-native invasive plant species, or NIWS for short. In this case, the target species was Multiflora rose, or Rosa multiflora. Our subject was a female Alpine Toggenburg mixed breed goat. She was roughly 2 years old at the time of the study. A multi-element research design was used in this study, and it was conducted in a forested area in upstate New York. The subject underwent one experimental session and one control session per day for a total of 9 days, and the order of sessions was counterbalanced across the days. During experimental sessions, the goat was prompted with a pointer to move towards a bush of Multiflora rose, which is the target invasive species. When the goat consumed the Multiflora rose, it was reinforced with a highly preferred food item, and this highly preferred food item served as the primary reinforcer. During control condition sessions, no pointer or reinforcer were used, and the goat was free to consume any vegetation available to it in the forested area. And a GoPro headset was worn by the researcher, and that was used to record each session. So, 2 trained observers used Boris software to code video data collected across the 9 days. Boris stands for Behavioral Observation Research Interactive Software. And these observers recorded every bite of Multiflora rose and other plants using this Boris software. So, for some results, the subject consumed Multiflora rose at a higher rate per minute across sessions during the experimental condition than the control condition. You can see this visually represented in Figure 1. The darker line represents the rate of Multiflora rose eaten during the experimental condition. It is a much higher rate, with a mean of roughly 11 bites per minute than the control condition, which is illustrated by the lighter gray line in Figure 1. A trend emerged across sessions where the subject consumed increasing levels of Multiflora rose during experimental sessions and decreasing levels of other plants. We can see this illustrated visually in Figure 2, with the darker line that represents the experimental condition rate of consumption of other plants decrease across sessions, while the rate of consumption of Multiflora rose and the experimental condition increases. We can see that again in Figure 1. In Figures 3 and 4, we can see in-session eating behavior from the 5th session of both the experimental and control condition sessions. Figure 3 represents the control condition session, with the top line representing other plants consumed, and we can see that they were consumed more than Multiflora rose. Figure 4 represents the experimental session, and the bottom line represents the Multiflora rose consumption, which is much higher than the consumption of other plants. And so we can draw a couple conclusions from this data. The results from the experimental condition and control condition sessions show that the subject consumed Multiflora rose at a higher rate during the experimental condition than the control condition. So it appears that operant conditioning strategies are successful in increasing the amount of Multiflora rose the goat consumed. So this suggests that the use of operant conditioning with goats may be an effective way to control invasive plant species. There are a few limitations that should be addressed. The camera used to record sessions was not always in full view of the subject, so not all the data was usable. However, all the data that was usable supported the hypothesis. And lastly, it is unknown which types of other plants the goat was eating. These other plants could have been native or non-native species other than the target species, Multiflora rose. And future research should examine differences between different breeds of goats and their various levels of success in controlling invasive species. Thank you so much for your time. That is the end of my presentation today, and have a great rest of your day.